Should we really be worried about aircraft hitting wind turbines? You and I have an insatiable appetite for electricity. Come with me and we'll look at the issues relative to wind farms and the communities that they serve. This is the Windfarm Guy. Hi, this is Dennis Stout, and thank you for joining me for this episode of the Windfarm Guy. The Federal Aviation Administration really has one job, and that is to keep our skies safe. I can appreciate that because I travel for a living, and getting on an airplane is a weekly, sometimes a daily thing. Me and my family want me to arrive at my destination safely, and when you travel, you and your family also want that same outcome. Statistically, the most dangerous times in an airplane's flight is takeoff and landing, and for two very good reasons. One is there are obstacles attached to the ground, like buildings and towers. Any structure is an obstacle and therefore a risk. The other reason is when an aircraft is close to the ground, there is little space below the airplane. Consequently, the pilot has very little margin for error, thereby increasing its risk. There is a saying among pilots that there are three useless things to a pilot: the air above you, the runway behind you, and the fuel on the ground. So when a plane is near the ground, all that space up above it is useless, and the plane is at risk because of the little space between it and the ground. That's why the FAA has rules for structures. Generally speaking, every structure 200 feet tall or taller must have appropriate lighting, especially on the structure's highest point. That way pilots can see them day or night. Wind farms, though, are an exception. First of all, the highest point of a wind turbine is a constantly moving object that is only the highest point for a second. So how do you like that? Secondly, how will it look for the folks on the ground? If you light these three blade tips that each are briefly the highest point once per revolution, it would be a spiraling spectacular that the neighbors would hate. Oh, it'd look cool, but who'd want to live near that? So the FAA has made an exception for wind turbines and allow the highest point on the tower, the top of the nacelle, to meet that requirement. That is great, but some wind farms have hundreds of turbines in them. That's still a lot to look at. So the FAA makes a second exception and doesn't require all turbines to have a light, just a certain amount of them. The FAA's big dilemma is how to make it safe for the pilots and their passengers while not driving the residents crazy here on the ground with all those lights. The answer may be ADLS. ADLS is Aircraft Detection Lighting System. Basically, equipment is installed in the wind farm that detects aircraft. I think it's typically a spinning radar mounted on top of a small tower, like the one behind me. This equipment detects incoming aircraft, then it triggers the wind farm's lighting to engage so the pilots can see the wind farm. Then after the aircraft passes through the wind farm, the lighting system is shut down again. This is all accomplished through the sensitive equipment and sophisticated software here on the ground. What a great solution to an ongoing problem. This reminds me of a need. We need to make the wind industry better. There are some short-sighted folks that want the wind industry to go away altogether, when what we really need is to solve the individual problems that wind farms have. That makes the industry better, and it makes the communities that host wind farms better as well. This is one of those solutions. If you like what we've discussed today, please click like and subscribe below. If you have thoughts or want me to address a particular topic relative to wind farms, please also leave me a comment. On a side note, wind turbine sound is a concern for some folks. And while standing right here, I want to point out that I am both near an interstate highway and an operating wind farm. And all I hear is the interstate. Yes, in this situation, the interstate is closer to me than the wind turbines, granted. But if I were between the interstate and the turbine, all I would hear would be the interstate. I was just near that turbine, and still all I could hear was the interstate. My point is wind turbines make far less sound than most area ambient sound. Okay, back to ADLS. Obviously these systems are not cheap. We're talking high-tech hardware and software plus the tower that it is mounted on. It has to be fail-safe, work every time, and turn off every time. I did a Windfarm Guy video on turbine lighting about 4 years ago and mentioned that this was on the horizon. Well folks, the technology is here and wind farm companies are adding this equipment to their projects. This is a great addition to a wind farm, especially in an area where there's significant pushback among some of the residents. This is Dennis Stout, and I'm the Windfarm Guy. Thank you for watching. Working together, we can make good energy decisions and save our planet. I am the Windfarm Guy.